This week's Torah portion is the portion of Vayechi dealing with the death of Jacob and Joseph, and therefore I feel it's very appropriate to deal with the law of mourning. And the reason for that is not just to learn the Torah portion, but the way that the world set up, you may say fortunately or unfortunately, is the way that we have, children have to face during their lifetime the situation that they have to do Shiur, meaning mourners, and therefore we have to know all the involvement with this. One, because we need to have some historical background. Two, because there are many questions regarding to the observance of these halakhot that come from this Torah portion. Idea of the Shiva. You know that not only observant Jews observing the 7 days of mourning called Shiva. There are many secular Jews that find out all over the world they are still observing the law of Shiva. And the question is this a biblical law or rabbinical law? What do you think?
For their father.
287. Okay, so the answer is we have from the Torah 613 commandment. However, it's not a biblical commandment. It's not a Torah commandment. It's a rabbinical commandment. Very different. The Torah law, you may call it, there is a special word that's called asmachta. Asmachta, or the word remez. Asmachta, meaning that you have an implication from the text that applies somehow indirectly, alluded to the text. But if you talk about law, is not such a thing a biblical law regarding to observing Shiva. The observing of the Shiva, it's come from the Rabbanan, it's called rabbinical law. Asmachta, meaning you can find some implications in the text that apply to that, and the rabbis derive from that rule, the law, because they saw it several times in the same fashion, so they made out of that a law. Make it clear.
Same thing with kashrut.
Kashrut is very similar, but it's a little different. Okay, so what is the source from this Torah portion? As Dan said, we have in this Torah portion the story of Joseph and Jacob. When Jacob died, his son, the viceroy king of Egypt, Joseph, mourned for him. And the text said here, what is it? 87. They said, sentence 10. They came and gone Atad, and at the end of the sentence they said, and he ordained a 7 days mourning period for his father. So this is the first and the original source that the rabbi said we derive from that a law of mourning. Someone lost his beloved one, he or she must observe the same. What we are saying so far, it's a rabbinical law that derives from the biblical text. The Torah said that Joseph mourned for his father for 7 days, and the rabbis learned from that, as well as other sources, that there is such a concept that the rules is called the Shiva. Now, we have to understand, before we go further, what's the Jewish approach to the mourners or the mourning? What happens? So we explained many times that there is the concept of cycle of life, meaning men have always a point that he or she began this life, and they get to the point that they ended their lifetime. And this cycle of life, this is the way that the Almighty created the world. And therefore, we follow this life cycle, and we meaning the generation that continue on, have to follow their footsteps. So how we do that? We follow the footsteps the way that they did things, we follow their way. So what did we do first when we heard, unfortunately, a bad news? The first thing is called Kiriah. Did you heard about Kiriah? Very good. You know what is the Kiriah? What is the Kiriah? Kiriah, by halakha, it means that you take the front garment and you tear your clothing. Where the idea of Kiriah come from? So it's come from the Torah. Where is this in the Torah?
When Jacob
Yes.
heard that Joseph was dead,
Page 207. Page 207. Very good, Numa. Page 207, when the brothers of Joseph informed a false report. They told the father that Joseph is dead, which is very bad on their part. Jacob, what did he do? What did they say? Rent his garment, set on the floor. Right. So again, it's not a Torah law so far. It's an implication by the law that we want to follow. We want to follow the footsteps of our ancestors. So the rabbis ruled the same fashion that Jacob tore his garments when we heard a bad news meaning not necessarily losing the life of somebody. Even there are other bad news, soon I tell you what, you also commanded by the rabbinical law to tear your garment. What is an example? The famous example of the story of Purim, Mordechai and Esther. When it was decreed by Haman to annihilate all the Jews, Mordechai heard about it, and what did he do first? Right away, page 1156, 1256, numbers, 1256, okay. 1255, chapter 4, 1255, chapter 4. Mordechai learned all the din, right? And Mordechai tore his clothes and put his sackets with ashes, right? And cry out.
What is that called?
Sackcloth. He took a big basket of ashes and he put it at the top of his head. It's like a sign of mourning, kind of sadness. By the way, the other group of the Indians and the Hindus and the others do something very similar. They took ashes and they put it on the top of their head. But the point is a sign of sorrow, a sign of sadness. They tear their garments. So you see that it happened in Jacob, you see it happened in Mordechai. So the rabbis learn it's a law that is called Kiriah, meaning tearing a garment in a time of sadness. Now, our heart is located in which place? In the right or the left? Left side. Therefore, it's a rabbinical law. It's not a Torah law. It's a rabbinical law. For a parent to do on the left side, and for other to do on the right side. And who are the people who have to do that? Only the blood relatives, the 7 immediate family. How many immediate family we have? We have 7 immediate family, which are father, mother, brother, sister, son and daughter, and either husband or wife. This is called by halakha 7 immediate family, and all stepfather is not so simple. But we talk about immediate blood relatives. But it's considering after marriage by halakha as a blood relative. So it's the 7 immediate family that they have to do as following. They have to tear their garments when they hear the bad news.
And you do the slides down.
This is a custom that they do in places that people do not wish to tear their garments. It's too expensive for them to lose their shirt. But if you go to very religious communities, they all do it. I did it last Friday for a fellow that wants to do it for real. He really tear his. Yes, they also tear the garment. Yes.
Just asking the question is why.
Okay, so the answer for that, I think I gave you my book, right, tabletop, and there is special writing for what Jacob is name is Israel and something. Anyway, back to our subject. So we have here the story of Kiriah, and we said that one tore his garment is a sign of mourning. Now, we have a situation that sometimes mourners feel like it happened on Friday. He said that he feels very close to his sister. So even the rabbi said that he should put it on the right side. I allow him to do it on the left side because left side represents the heart and he feels that way, which is fine. Why are we doing it in that fashion? Because as the rabbi we knew when we can be lenient if it's a question of rabbinical, we are more lenient. It's not that we are changing, but we are more lenient. Okay, so we talk about turn the garments, and now the next question is, what happened right after that? We have a situation that the body is still in a hospital, and we, that each and every one will live for 120, but we, as the children, need sometimes to be aware of the situation. So this is the situation. The body is in a hospital, and we in a quandary. We don't know what the next steps we should do. So the next step, before we become a mourner, is called Onan. Did you heard about Onan?
Yes.
Very good. I'm proud of you. Okay, very good. So let's talk about Onan. What is Onan? What is Onan? Very important period. The first period is already passed by. The first period is the time that we heard the news, we cut our garment. Now the next step is the time that it's called Onan, meaning I'm not a mourner yet, right? And I'm not who is taking care of, I'm not part of the sacred society, Kadish, I'm not doing anything. On the other hand, I'm in a great state of sorrow. So what's the law applied to Onan? Is the rabbinical law that said, what is Onan?
Soul has to be released, yes?
The body is, let's put a scenario. Mr. A is in a hospital, he passed away, got to be, and we, for example, we have here the children, and they ask us what we have to do now. So the answer is they call Onan. Onan by Jewish law, he is absolutely free from doing any mitzvot. He is free from putting the covenant, he is free from saying Shema, he is free from all the commandments. Because he is in a state of sorrow, what he needs to do is just to concentrate with his sorrow. We're not asking to perform any mitzvot, to do any other thing. It's called Onan. How long one is in a state of Onan, and soon you see why it's so crucial, it's from the time of hearing the news up to the time of finished burial. Whenever we cover fully the coffin and we leave the cemetery, up to that time, from the time period of the Kiriah, right, up to the time that we complete burial, this time period is called Onan. Okay? And in that fashion, if it happens to Mr. X, he is free from putting tefillin, from going to the shul, from daven, from saying Shema, from doing all of that. It's called Onan.
Suppose it's a holiday.
Suppose it's a holiday, he has free obligations from doing anything. It's called Onan. If you want, this is a short, it's called Kitzur. It's a short code of Jewish law. They have some of this. They have 2 chapters about Onan. You can read. The very end of that book.
The reason I asked is my father-in-law passed away on
After the completion of the burial, you are free from all the commandments. It's called Onan. It's always good to come to the rabbi class, and it's always good to hear these things. It's always good to come to the Bible class and learn. I said it many times. Okay, so the next step, what do? You concentrate with your sorrow. You concentrate with the funeral arrangement. You're in the state of sorrow. You're staying with the sorrow. Basically, by halakha, those who are very religious, those you do not have to, meaning you observe Rosh Hashanah in a sense. You're staying home and you refrain from, for example, if it's Yom Kippur or time, to go ahead and to do all the rituals, you're free. This is the only state of time that Judaism requires you to concentrate with you.
Why do you go to Shiur for Rosh Hashanah?
Onan, listen, I can repeat the law. The law saying that from the time of the loss, the relative, up to the completion of burial, you should stay home and concentrate with your sorrow. Moreover, those very strict religious, those who very religious people who follow strictly the law, they not leave home up to the end of the Shiva period, which is another subject. In a state of Onan, it's clear that this is the time that you are famished with different world and we free you. Okay. Now another thing that you mentioned, it's important to know, it's called Shomer, and we explained that the idea that we believe that in the period of time that the soul is not departure from the body, and therefore we want to give the best respect to the body, to the soul. And how we do that? Because we believe that the soul belongs to God and the body belongs to God. We not leave the body and the soul alone. And this is called Shomer, meaning someone who dedicated his time to be there and make some prayer. It's called Shomer. Okay? Next step, and soon you see why it's so effective what I'm saying, because I will present you many questions. The time of the funeral up to the completion of burial. There's a lot of misunderstanding by many people. They do not know the halakha. I'm saying that giving a word of comfort is only when the soul is fully departed from the body. And that happened by Jewish law only when we complete the burial procedure. Which means only when we fully cover the coffin and make it clear that it's fully covered, this is the time that we form the two lines and we give them a word of comfort. Now you ask me a famous question. So why you see in many places that they have a line of people before the eulogy that they give a word of comfort? And the answer is wrong, 10 times. Jewish law saying that the soul is not departure from the body, and therefore they are still in a great state of sorrow, and it's still not the right time to give them a comfort. Now why they do that? They follow Christians and others. It's not Jewish. What? The rabbinical law? Rabbinical law, it starts from the time of losing the temple in Jerusalem and go on and on to all of rabbinical law. You can read about it in a few books. This is the best book you deal with from Professor Lamb. Very good book. And there's another good book. I lent it to Larry Goldstein. It's called the Jewish Mourners Book of White by Rabbi Colette. Or you go to the Shulchan Aruch, and this is the short version, it's Shulchan Aruch. All of these books talk at length, all of these halachot that I mentioned. Okay.
You know, I went to a shiva house.
I'll go to that. We are not in that part. We talk about, we didn't go so far. We left the Korea, we left the Onan, and we are the situation of the cemetery, meaning the time of the beginning of the funeral services up to the completion of the burial. This is the still time that is called Onen. And as long as they are a state of Onenim, the family members, the immediate family, they're required to do Kiriah, they're required to do preparations for the burial, and you have the Kadish, the Sacred Society are taking care of the body and preparing the body, but they are free from all the commandments. So in that sense, we also free from being in contact with them. We just leave them alone, basically by halakha. Now, yes.
Usually we have the Kiriah.
Circumstance that, for example, we many times in a situation that we have, let's say, part of the mourners who are here, some of them are not here, part of them familiar, some of them not familiar. So we make a rule in many congregations in the United States that they are not familiar, those who are not so erudite, to make it right before the beginning of the services in order to make sure that all the family members were there. And usually what the rabbis do is they gather together all the immediate family and they tell them, you know, this is the time to unite, this is the time to have peace between you, and now we're going to have Kiriah. And we tell the government one after the others, respectfully told the closest relatives, they are the first to do that. But basically you're right, halachically speaking, strictly halachically speaking, you have to do it right away. Okay, let's go to the next step because we go on and on and on and on. Okay, the next step is when we have the funeral service, right? We have the funeral service, and this is another thing that I mentioned many times in many occasions. People think the funeral service is, meaning the more speaker, the better for the deceased. And this is against Jewish law. Jewish law basically said, it's a law that's saying, Lo talim alamed. I show you many times in the book of Deuteronomy, never mind. It's written there that if you have a body of a deceased, you should take care of the body, wash the body, clean the body, purify it, whatever you need to do, cover it with shroud, tahara, and right after that, bury it. So in Eretz Yisrael, for example, a friend of mine, next door neighbor, we studied together for many years, his daughter, 3 years old, suddenly died on Shabbos afternoon, and we bury her right after Shabbos, meaning an hour or two after Shabbos, at that night, in the cemetery. Okay, so the point is, we did it tahara and everything after Shabbos, take an hour, 2 hours, and then we buried her. Basically, by halakha, you should bury as fast as you can, because we believe that it's caused the soul a great sorrow by not giving them the chance to depart from the body. Now people think that the more speakers and the more praising the deceased is give them a joy, a nachas, but it's not get along with Jewish law. In other religion maybe, but not in our religion. In our religion we said that we should bury as fast as we can. Those who are very strict usually do a graveside. One of the reasons because of that. Okay, next step is we go to the cemetery, and then some people ask me why we stop 7 times. If you see, when you take out the coffin, the rabbi is standing in the back and he's stopping 7 times. So here we go to we enter to different gate, which is the gate of the aspect. We believe that there are forces around the coffin, and we need to pray and protect the soul when she departed from the body, to have it in peace. And this is the reason why we said a special prayer in that time. The rabbi knows what to do. The next step is we take the coffin and we put it all the way down and we cover it. Why? One of the main reasons because we need to have the process fast, and because we do not want the soul to cause her sorrow. This is the main reason why we'd like to do it all the way down and cover it, right? And again, this is one of the big controversial issues with other groups such as Reconstructionists and some Reform. They want the coffin to stand up and everybody go through and give a blessing, so touch or say something or put the flowers. All of that does not come from our religion, it comes from other religions. We should know about it. Our religion says all the way down, the less money you put over the coffin, the better, right? The more simple, the better, because the body came from that and should return to that as best as they can.
The soul does not depart from the body until it's buried.
The completion of the burial. This is what Judaism says.
That's why it's fast.
Where did that stone? Place the stones and why?
At the Yaartzeit, I'll go to that. We're not there here. Yes.
Does that mean when you get to the cemetery?
Oh, this is just a matter of arrangement. It's better. I always said to the guy to drive slowly to make sure that those who are in the cemetery will be there. The fact that they're waiting, usually they're waiting for the immediate family to make sure they will be able. Basically, again, all of that, we believe that is called solved. Next step is.
I don't think you understood his question. Right before burial, they open the coffin, they put sticks.
Wait. Allah refrain from seeing the body or doing anything with the body. After you cover it with the shroud, you're not allowed to do anything like that. You're not allowed to open, you're not allowed to touch, you're not allowed to do anything. He asked me why some do that. The exception that I know of, it happened in the Israeli army several times, that it was a question of they get too many bodies and it wasn't clear the identification of the bodies, and the family members came and they gave a special signal over the bodies, special signs, numbers and all kind of things to relate to the body, and it happens that the rabbis allow in that circumstance to make sure to identify the body, but otherwise we cover it, we put it in the coffin, and that's it. We do not open it. Okay, let's go to the next step. And the next step is the period of Shiva. So we said we complete the burial, and now we are in the state of Shiva. We explained that in the Torah it's written that Jacob was mourned for 7 days, and it's also the way that the rabbis learn it is in the opposite way too. There are many rabbinical law, and I try always to make it as simple as they can. So this is the number 7 in Judaism. It's a very important number, right? You have the festivals, the Passover, the Sukkot, many other festivals, number 7. The rabbi said that because these festivals is always referring to number 7, and because we read the story of Jacob and others, it's also go the opposite way. Meaning, also the time of mourning, the time of meaning the mourners to assuage their pain and go to the next period of time, it has to be the same way, the opposite way, meaning 7 days. Okay? So this is one of the main reasons why the rabbi put the period at 7 and not 5 or 3 or 20 days, 7 days period. Shiva. What happened in the Shiva house? So in the Shiva, first law, very important to know, that the mourners should refrain from wearing a shoe, right, at their home, and refrain from shaving. Also, in that time, they should not leave their house if it's not necessary. If it's a Shabbat and they need to go to the synagogue, but otherwise they're not allowed. The first they do when they come home is to eat. It's called Seudat, prepared by them, but prepared by others, by the neighbors and others. And then when they sit in Shiva, they sit in the low bench, represent their sadness, and they contemplate their sadness. Halacha tells us a very interesting point that when you come to greet the mourners, you shall make sure they are in a great state of sorrow, and you're sitting there. You shall not begin the conversation. Let them start. Where they learn it, it's written several times in the book of Job, when his friends and others came to give him a word of comfort. What did they do is they sat there and they waited for him to begin the conversation. All of that applied to a famous, more related to custom or tradition than the law. The same thing, for example, you see in the cemetery that they start shoveling opposite ways. Again, it's a matter of custom. They out with this way, out of the other way. It's not the law. Same thing here. We prefer to let them start first, and this is the custom that we mostly follow. We have the 7 days period. Basically, in the time of the Shiva, we have a very different set of law for the mourners, and those who come to prayers are different. We're not allowed to say tachanun, meaning supplication. We're not allowed to have too much prayer of sorrow. So we have a very different form of prayer in a house of mourning. For example, there is a special prayer that's called tachanun that we put in the great judgment, and it's a period of time that they live in a great sorrow. We're not extended their sorrow, and we're not extended the judgment, and therefore we just refrain from doing all of that. So there are some phrases and paragraphs that we just skip. So we are in the house of mourning. It makes no difference to Sephardim or Ashkenazim. They all skip this. Also add a special prayer, a special psalm that relate to the house of mourning. Some words, for example, Psalm 49, that's very much related to their sorrow and the meaning of life. This is the period of Shiva. Now, before we go further, I represent to you some questions so you see why it's a very complicated subject. A fellow called me up several months ago, and he said, I have no relationship with my father for many years, and I heard that he passed away 2.5 weeks ago. The question is, do I need to observe anything or not? What do you think?
Yes.
How many things yes? Let me make it more complicated. Somebody heard about his close relatives, meaning immediate family, that he or she died 7 months ago. Okay? Let's trace a scenario. Son and his father, they don't talk to one another for many years. Now, 7 months after the father was buried, the son heard that the father died. What is he supposed to do?
Sit Shiva.
Let's go further. It happened 1.5 years after the father passed away. The son needs to sit Shiva. You're on the right track. Don't think that you're wrong. But I'm just curious to see how far you are.
A year and a half.
Is there a rabbinical law?
Yes, it's rabbinical law.
Exactly.
Yes, it's a rabbinical law. I think it's even here.
The rabbinical law.
Yes, it's even here. But let me hear you.
You have to observe Yiskar.
Yiskor, we'll talk about Yiskor, but let's talk first about hearing the news. Hearing the news. You know, some people they have relatives that missing in action, right? And it's a period of time that you don't know, and then they discover that in that time he or she died, right? Now they release the information and they tell you the intelligence or whatever. It's happened in all kind of different circumstances. So the question is, what do you have to do? So, okay, who is the good reader? Esther. Read this first.
And delayed news. If a person heard of the news of his death, or even on the 30th day itself, such tidings are obliged to observe the 7 days of mourning from the day he receives the news. The 30 days of mourning are also counted from the day he receives the news. The day he receives the news is like the day of burial with regard to all his laws. The 30-day period during which the news is considered timely is counted from the day of burial and not from the day of death.
Thank you. So this is the first one. Okay, let's go to another one, number 2.
If he receives the news after 30 days, it is delayed news, and he needs to observe the laws of mourning. Whether he received the news by day or he received it at night, 1 hour of mourning is sufficient. This is true even, however, the mourning which is observed for one's father or mother during the entire 12 months of the death was delayed. The father or mother, after 12 months, he need observe only 1 hour of mourning, even with regard to things that are usually observed throughout the
Thank you, Esther. Very good. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about it. What have they said so far? First, we separated between parents and others, meaning even within the 7 immediate family, there is a difference between parents and others. So if it's a brother, sister, or son, daughter, right, and others, right, these apply only for 30 days. Okay? If it's a son or daughter for the parents, then it exceeds more than 30 days for the entire 12 months. So in that case, if someone hears the bad news about his or her father or mother, even that it is the 7 months afterwards, he or she needs to observe the time of Shiva, tear the garments, and do the Kadish up to where? Up to the day of the burial. Okay? If it's other immediate family, it's only applied for the 30 days. More than 30 days is just 1 hour, which happen anyway. So, let me trace the case. You see how simple is this, quote unquote. Let's say someone here, let's call him Mr. A. Mr. A heard that his father passed away, and he is now in California. His father is in Boston. And he heard about it. Today we are on Thursday, and it happened that because of all the commuting issue and security issue and the plane issue and others, they will not be able to bury the father up to the Tuesday in the following week, which means we have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 6 days after the father passed away, we bury the father. Now the question is, when the 12-month period is finished, when we go to the cemetery, when is the Yahrzeit? And here we should learn a very important rule, which is the first year and the rest of the year. The first year we follow the day of burial, and the rest of the years we follow the day of death. The only time we follow the day of death for the first year if we bury the body less than 3 days, or usually day or two, meaning the same day or the next day after the person passed away. So if it happened on Thursday and you bury the person on the next day or Friday, then even at the first year you observe the Yahrzeit on the same day of the death. If you bury the person more than 2, 3 and more days after he or she passed away, then the time of the mourning is the first year, the day of the burial, and the rest of the years is the day of the death. Now, in a case that you hear about someone, let's say 2 months afterwards, and you talk about parents, right, parents and children, then we have to observe the time. Let's say it happens that someone hear about his father missing in action, and they heard that it happens. Yes, now the authority confirmed that it happened in Iraq, that he died, and it was 5 months ago, 7 months ago. Now they inform you that he died, right? And they give you the exact date, the exact place, and everything. What a person should do, he should tear his garment, he should observe the Shiva, he should observe the Shaloshim, and for how long he has to say Kadish? Up to the day of burial. So, if they tell you, yes, he passed away a half a year ago, and we bury the body 4 days afterwards, for example, he passed away on Rosh Hashanah, right? First day of Tishrei, right? And they bury him, they ship the body and they bury him on the 4th of Tishrei. And you hear it now, and now it's the mid of Tevet, Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, Tevet, 4 months afterwards, right? You have to observe the Shiva, you have to observe the Shaloshim, and you go in the yearly cycle up to what? Up to the 4th of Tishrei. You're not exceeded more than 4. We talk so many laws, and the lawyers are not here. Oh, that's terrible. Okay.
In the corner?
Yeah.
You're going to sit?
No, I'm not sitting here. I'm not sitting. So we observe the Shiva up to the 4th because this is the day of the burial. Okay? This is the day of the burial, so we observe the Shiva up to that day. So far, so good? let's go further. So we talk about the Shiva. Now let's talk about the Shaloshim. You know that there's another period of time that is still time that we call a time of mourning, and it's called the Shaloshim, the 30 days. Who have to observe the Shaloshim? All the 7 immediate family. The only difference between children, parents, and other immediate family is the time between the end of the Shaloshim to the end of the 12 months. For example, in the case that we have in our community, it's the parents for the children, so they need to observe only the 30 days period. The only one who needs to observe the entire 12 months is their son, 17 years old, their grandson, her son. He's the only one who has to observe the entire 12 months. The parents need to observe only 30 days. Now you ask me questions that you asked me already if he can substitute his grandson for saying Kadish. It's a different subject. But basically by halakha, by law, the law of observance applies to the children, for the parents, for the entire 12 months. The rest of the immediate family is applied for the other 5 immediate family, it's applied only for 30 days period. It's called Shaloshim. How do we learn the Shaloshim? Again, let's open the Chumash page 848. In page 848, it's in English, page 849, sentence 29. 849, sentence 49. 849, sentence 29.
848.
849
848.
in Hebrew. In English, 849, sentence 29.
Oh, okay.
Okay. When the entire assembly saw that Aharon had perished, they wept for Aharon for 30 days, the entire house of Israel. Okay? So this is one source. Again, we explained this is not a Torah law. It's not, it said, God speak to Moses saying, speak to the children of Israel, they should observe 30 days. Because it's not written that fashion, it's a rabbinical law. That the rabbis derive from the text the law of the 30 days, the law of Shaloshim. And another source, we have many, but another is page 1122. And you see the same thing is written there. What? 1122. Right? And they said here about Aharon, now about Moses, sentence 8. 1123, sentence 8. They said the children of Israel bewailed Moses in the plain of Moab for 30 days. And they said, then the days of Shiur for Moses ended.
It wasn't a direct commandment from Hashem.
It's a rabbinical law.
Rabbinical law based on things that they observed.
Excellent knowledge. Okay.
This could have been a custom back then.
Yes.
So how is, for the first 7 days,
you can leave the house to say Kadish and Shiur. They can go to do other things. But for example, they're not allowed to engage in any happy occasion. They're not allowed to dance. They're not allowed to have music. They're not allowed to shave, basically, by halakha. Many things apply to them, but they don't have to take off the shoes. They go to buy food and do things like that.
They work. Back to the community.
Yeah.
But for example, if they need to do work or so like that, they're allowed to do all that needs to be done. Even in that case, they have to do the radio program on Sunday, right? So do it for other people, this radio program. So the same case is the state of Shaloshim. It's not part of the Shiva. And you do it as part of work, or you do it for the part of the volunteer for the community. You do allow to do it for the period of Shaloshim. Because it's a rabbinical law, and because we are more lenient. We explained it before. Okay, so let's go back here and let's understand first what we are saying so far. We learned so far a few important things, right, Esther?
Yes.
What's the first thing? Right. The first thing we learned is the idea of Kiriya, meaning when someone lost, and unfortunately this is the way the world is set up, someone lost his beloved one. If he's part of the 7 immediate family, he or she must tear the garment, right? The left side for parents, the right side for other immediate family, and this is the period that's called, it's time called Kiriya, right? Between the Kiriya and the time of burial, it's called Onan. In that time, the person is free from all the commandments. He's not engaging with anything. He doesn't need to do Shema, to do Amidah, to do prayer, to put a feeling, to do any mitzvah. He is free from all of that. The people who are in charge for the body, the sacred society, Cadish, or if there's no one else he needs to do it by himself, he do allow to engage in his sorrow and take care of the body, right? But rather than that one, he is free. This period of Onan applies from the time of Kiriah up to what time? Up to the
Burial.
completion of burial. So we said that the completion of burial, the soul, we believe that the soul not departed from the body from the time that you heard the news, the hospital, that he or she stopped breathing, up to the completion of the burial, meaning the coffin is all the way down and covered. This is the time that we believe that his departure, the soul departure from the body. Is that clear?
Comfort after that.
And you give comfort, the only time you're allowed to begin giving comfort is the time that you leave the cemetery, you form two lines, and then you said, may Hashem comfort you among the other mourners of Zion and Jerusalem, you may never know any more sorrow. This is the only time, yes.
So when a non-Jew asks, why are Jews buried
Correct.
in December?
Correct,
Because
yes.
they always ask you, why do you
Correct, that's very correct.
The
Yeah.
other thing is often people come in to see people, pray for them perhaps, bring them food
Page
perhaps.
1049.
How the American way.
1049. This is the answer to your Esther. 1049. It's 1049, sentence 23. 1049, sentence 23. What the Torah said? His body shall not remain for the night on the gallows, rather you shall surely bury him on that day. On that day, you have the oral text. We explained numerous times why we believe that the oral text was part of the written text and Moses received and transmit both. Because if you take the text literally, you have a lot of issues. So we have the rabbis who discuss it at length, and the bottom line, the code of Jewish law, the halakha, say on that day, meaning you should try to bury the body ASAP.
But that deals with somebody that's hanging is a curse. You got to get off the gallows in the ground as soon as possible. That's different.
So the rabbis discussed it. And one rabbi said exactly the way that you are. And the other rabbi said dispute. And you know, we explained many times that the Socrates used to say, to another philosopher, used to say, whenever I said yes, you should say no. And whenever you said yes, I should say no. So we created a dialogue, a discussion. And the more we dispute, the more chances we have for having more creativity and more new ideas. So the whole idea of these big lawyers, the rabbis and the Talmud, is because they argue and argue and argue, and you have sometimes 5 opinions, but the bottom line is, after all of these opinions, you hear in a very creative way what the school of thought for different rabbis, and 450 years ago it was Joseph Caro that formed, together with his rabbinical assembly, the book that's called Code of Jewish Law, this is the bottom line. So yes, there are school of thought that said, oh, this law is applied only if is a certain circumstance. And you have others that dispute. The bottom line is, they all concur after one decision that since we believe that the soul have a great sorrow, as long as it's not complete the process, we should try to make it present. This is the reason why we do it very special. Okay, next step. So we said that we finish burial and then the house of mourning. So we explained that in the house of mourning we have a special meal that the neighbors or relatives prepare for them. And then they need to take a Shiva period, a 7-day period, right? And we explained that the idea of 7 days is implied in the text, right? The story of this week's Torah portion, that. What happened this week's Torah portion? That.
Jacob died.
When Jacob died, Joseph instructed all the Egyptians and all the Jews there to mourn for a 7-day period. We also learn it in the antidote from the festivals, because in the festivals it's always observed for 7 days, and the 7 is a very important number in Judaism. So we learn it also in a positive and in a negative way, which means the same way that we observe celebrations, we also observe for 7 days the Shiva period. Now, the next step is we ask a question about a mourner that hear the news and they are not in that place. Example, someone have his children in South America and he died here in Annapolis. He have one child in Baltimore and he have one daughter in South America and another son in Europe, right? And the son and the daughter heard about the father passing 2 days afterwards, right? So here are some questions. Question number 1. the son who lives in Annapolis have the right to delay the funeral because he's waiting for his sister and brother to come? Yes or no?
No.
How many think yes? The answer is this is a very painful question, and most of the rabbis say no, but there are said yes. There are some who say that if, only in the exception, that is the children for the parents, right, that need to say a Kaddish, particularly if there's no other relative. Let's say if you have other immediate family, like brothers, sisters, but their children are not there, right? Some rabbis said it should wait for the children if it's not exceeded more than 48 hours, but they are not the majority.
But the soul is suffering.
Absolutely. The majority of the rabbis said that the soul is suffering and you shouldn't wait. But because it's such a touchy issue, this is one of the gray area, the lawyer likes this phrase, the gray area that the rabbis always play with, that gray area. That if it's a son or daughter, usually they wait, they postpone it. Right or wrong, it's controversial. Yes.
I can hear the mother now saying, "Oh, I suffered all my life with my son. What's another 48 hours?" No.
No way. A lot more than 40 years.
Yes.
The other way around.
Exactly, that the soul is suffering greatly. Mysticism, Jewish mysticism. Yes.
The Kabbalah.
Kabbalah and others, they believe in that. And they have sources from the book of Job, from other sources, that is the time period that the soul suffers. But we're not entering into that area. Let's go further. So we ask a question. The question is, and it happens unfortunately, that you have one child close by, another child or two children very far. And let's say they cannot come for the funeral. And the burial happens 2 days after the death, right? And the children heard about that, let's say 2 days, a week, or 2 weeks. If it's the children for the parents, what they have to do? Rent the garment and sit shiva for 7 days. Even they hear the news 5 months afterwards. As long as it's the time period of the 12 months, the children are obligated to sit shiva, clean his sins. So it's the time period. Now his children giving charity, saying Kadish, lifting up the soul, and now the soul is resting in peace, right? So we believe the most wicked people and the most strong hell judgment that the person can get is not exceeded more than 12 months. Otherwise, the soul needs to return again, right? Therefore, if it's the 12 months, and we said when it started is the time that we complete burial, therefore it makes no sense for him to continue on more than 7 months. You get it?
The soul's already been on its way.
Right. In that fashion, yes.
But then we say, because the soul, we believe that the person is a good
One of the reasons why we have the 12 months is a situation like that, and other situation that you miss a day or you miss a week. Right? So we go on up to the 12 months. But basically we do believe that if the children do it the right way, study Mishnah, giving charity, saying Kadish 3 times a day, the 11-month period, absolutely done deal.
Is that why we can also have the...
But you see, you're not exceeded more than that time. So the reason we follow the day of the burial of the first year, because anyway you cannot go more than that time, right? However, if it happens on the same day, right, the burial, or the next day, right, because it's close by, it's less than 48 hours, then you go to the original day, even at the time of it. Now you ask me questions, so why every year we not follow the day of burial, the day of the death? It's because there's a strong belief in Judaism that is the review of the case once a year. Once a year, they open the case and review it. This is part of our belief. You want to go to Ari in Sefer, the famous Kabbalistic master and others, this is what they believe. So this is the time that's called a Memorial Day, Yahrzeit, and they gather together and make the... and this is a strong belief that is called theurgy, we said in the beginning. What is the theurgy? Theurgy is the belief that not just Jewish people believe, and many others believe, that we, as a human, have the power to change a thing that is a decree and change things around our physical world. You know that there's a concept we talk many times. It's a physic and metaphysic world. Meaning this is my physical world and this is the metaphysical world, the world around me. So we believe in Judaism that when we are praying, for example, you say Mishabach for a sick. what exactly happened? Let's think together. What happened to that? You were saying Mishivach for someone who is in friend, right? So what do you believe? That the superpower, right, the Almighty, hearing your prayer, and you have the ability, you as a human, have the ability to influence God, to ask Him to do something in the other place in the world. It's called theology.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the orgy.
No.
You're on the wrong class.
Have the ability, human have the ability, human have is a theo, meaning the human have the ability to change things, to change God's decision, to change things around the world by their prayer, by their doing good deeds. This is the whole religion all about, okay?
Rabbi.
So this apply also, just a second, to the law of Yahrzeit. We said that you should observe Yahrzeit. It's the Yiddish word. In Hebrew it says Yom Zikaron, it's Memorial Day. You gather together, 10 people, you study Mishnah, you give charity, you say Moro's Kadish. So what is the Kadish? You said magnify and sanctify the holy name. And everyone said Amen. And by doing that, you sanctify God's name. And that way you believe that you're lifting up Aliyah Neshama, you're lifting up the soul, is the theology, meaning you have the ability, we as a human have the ability to influence the feelings of God.
Is
Or the
that
heavenly
in
code,
the
right?
dictionary, Rabbi? Is the word in the English
Yes,
dictionary?
in the fancy dictionary. Because this is what I learned in the school.
I'd like to go back for a few minutes.
Like Latin, Greek, English dictionary.
I'd like to go back, Rabbi, to what you said before about
Look at it.
11
in the
months.
computer you find.
11 months. You only have to take Kaddish for 11. And
Because
also,
children and parents.
yeah, this is also connects with the fact that I have to.
Unveiling. Excellent question. Unveiling. I refer you to the Jewish Mourner's Book of Why by Rabbi Colette. It's so far the book that I find clearly an explanation of unveiling. And what did he said in that book? Very interesting. He said that this custom comes in Great Britain at the beginning of 1900. It was a few rabbis that asked for the royal family and others to observe some sort of going back to the cemetery and visiting the beloved one in a short period of time afterwards, and revealing the monument, and they make it a ceremony and they call it unveiling. This, you call it Meshigas, you call it Mina, because you don't need rabbi, you don't need anybody. If some people want to visit the cemetery and pray, God bless them. But it's not a services that have any source by biblical law, rabbinical law, or custom.
Now, what
It's something
about
that happened in the past few
We
years.
started to talk earlier
About circling around the block and stuff.
No.
Okay.
Stones on
The stones that they put on a grave is a sign, again, is a symbol that we want to say mostly to ourselves, not to them. But in that fashion, you may say, I said it to them, that we not forget you, remind you, and also it's a sign of cycle of life, that, men come from dust, return from dust, stones representing dust, in that fashion. The same way, there are some mourners, when they complete the mourners, especially those who come from Europe, from Romania, Hungary, they like to circle around the block after they finish the Shiva period. And people ask me, so again, it's a custom that express the cycle of life, meaning life always has a beginning and have an end, and this is a kind of expression of what is life all about. But again, you're dealing here with many different customs. It's not laws written on stone. Yes.
I thought it had to do with the
To a biblical commentary. It's the idea. People have an idea, but it's nothing. It's just a nice idea. Very nice idea. Well,
because within the first year you remember it, you may forget.
it's less than shalom. Whenever the company is ready with the monument, they put the monument. They call the minion. They make the monument, and that's it. But if people want to say some prayer and want to say Kadish, so they need a minion in order to do that. And Kadish, you magnify and sanctify the holy name. You believe that you're lifting up the soul. You believe that you're helping the soul to rest in peace. In order to do that, you need a quorum.
If somebody dies without children, or let's say with no family at all, I mean, who says anything for his soul?
Excellent question. Typically, you can hire someone else, and this is unfortunately part of my call, that many times, unfortunately, there are either no members of the family or there are some members who are not able to do anything. And this is the reason why you hear me many times saying Mourner's Kadish and thank God for 120 parents. It's because of these people. Okay? And now you enter into a big discussion, which is what happened, who have preferences over davening and the Omen. Because you have sometimes the mourners doing the Shloshim, you have a mourner doing the 12 months, and you have someone who have a Yahrzeit. And if the three of them want to go on the Omen, and the three of them have the same day, which one they take precedence? So in short, the more pain, they take precedence. And this is one of the reasons why we divided the prayer, for example, the Shachar, into three parts. One up to Ishtabach, one at the Ashrei, and one from Ashrei to the end, to give a chance to everyone to do Kadish.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
my husband had a friend.
Right.
He did it for a year.
Oh yeah,
My mother-in-law made a donation to,
take Kadish for the whole year.
and they have flags. They have flowers.
yeah.
And over in the map, they place the name of the
Casual.
Okay, one, we learned the idea of Kiriah, right? We learned the idea of Shiva, and the idea of Shaloshim, okay? We learn about Onan, okay? We learn also about Shomer, that's true, and we learn about the Mourner's Kadish and the Yahrzeit. And we said that this is the way that the world created, and unfortunately we have to face this, and it's important for us to be aware, to know all of that. And I do know that there are many, many more questions, and I bet when you start thinking about today's lesson, the more you're thinking, the more questions you have, and I encourage you to come and ask me more questions, because the more you ask, the more you know all about. Thank you very much.